Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome back to the Liberal Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Bodio and with me I have Kaylie Horowitz.
Hello.
And Andy Gibby Gibson.
I didn't prepare anything for this.
Hold on, I got you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We really love good Foley work around here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nothing I love better than listening to somebody else sip on a drink.
That is not good.
There's not a ringing product endorsement here, folks. It's just bad.
Well, we also haven't said what it is, so nobody can get mad at us.
You get to fill in the blank.
I was going to say what it was, but I guess we don't want
Nope.
anti-advertisers.
You never know when Big Drink is going to send their hitmen after us.
Big sip.
Yeah.
Is coming for you.
You never know, because like the Big Drink
Big
lobby,
Sippy.
it's
Big
out
Sippy
there.
Corporation.
Isn't that just PepsiCo?
Well, you know, but who owns Pepsi and Coke?
PepsiCo, Gibby.
Yeah,
Pepsi
but
Company.
I know that like they've got
They're
them
different.
and
They're
Frito-Lay.
different companies.
I know they're different companies. Or are they?
They are.
Gibby.
They're all part of Big Sip, I'm telling you.
Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Pepper's still independent, though, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Dr.
he's
Into Pepper.
Yeah. He's a man of integrity, so we can still trust him.
Hey, Dr. Pepper could be a woman. You don't know.
That's on me.
Women are doctors. So are soda cans.
Well,
But not many soda cans, because they're not old enough to go to med school.
this is true, but have you considered the sexist ad campaign that Dr. Pepper 10 is not for women, if you recall? The very well thought out advertising campaign from 10 years ago. It's one of those,
haunts me.
so there was an advertising campaign for like 10-calorie Dr. Pepper
Yes.
that they decided to lean in heavily to hyper masculine like action movie style advertisement.
Because instead of being a low calorie soda for women, they wanted to tap it as a low calorie soda for men. That was the idea.
The tagline of it was Dr. Pepper, it's not for women. But
Not
I think
only for women?
no,
No.
like excluding women.
Exclusion.
Women are not allowed to have 10-calorie Dr. Pepper.
No, you can have diet, you can have regular, you can have cherry and all the other varieties.
Which I'll take that.
But no, this one is for men and only men. They leaned so hard into the like extremely on the nose sexism that it kind of worked. And like it ran like multiple different commercials for it. Dr. Pepper 10 isn't around anymore. Thanks, feminism. But, you know, it had its time.
I take a sip of this, and Dr. Pepper himself drops down from the ceiling and breaks my neck, says trans girl link. Another Spiro and the Lactone says, I found out I was trans when I tried to drink this, and my hand clipped through it.
You know, that's a relatable experience.
Might be a sexist, but Dr. Pepper supports trans rights.
I don't think he supports trans rights as much as he exposes trans
No. He exposes trans women. No.
Yeah.
Dr. Pepper, how could you do this?
It's like you reach for a Dr. Pepper and your hand no clips through it.
No clips.
And the clerk at Walmart's like, hey man, I have some news for you.
But like simultaneously, like a little achievement flag like goes up over your head.
Whether you want it or not.
Gender identity explored.
They slide a copy of Fallout New Vegas towards you.
It's like, you have to take this. There is no option.
I don't have an Xbox 360. I said take it.
Yes, you do.
Happy Pride Month still.
Happy Pride! We're coming down to the wire. We're here at the end. Me and all the other queers out there, we're about to lose our double fold powers like the waterbenders during the eclipse of Avatar. It's all downhill from here.
Firebenders plus their...
Wow. Fake fan.
There's a question for another day. When do we like double down? I mean, the full moon, but like I need like an exclusive, more powerful event, you know?
It works like this, where you have the full moon is the equivalent of Pride, and then literally right after it, July 4th is the opposite of that.
Independence weekend is exactly, there you go. That's it.
Fireworks,
That's it.
fire bending, and all the extra firepower that comes involved with that.
I guess it'd be the summer solstice, huh?
You also have like other peak moments of Americana popping in at that time because America's Got Talent is in like full swing at that point, to which I'm not exactly sure who that program is for anymore. There's
I
been
was about to
20
say, how do
seasons.
you know?
Why do you even know that?
How do you know when it's in full swing?
Because the advertising is incessant, people.
I don't believe you.
No, it's true. Just because you people don't watch cable regularly anymore does not mean that it is not constantly on for
Kaylee, you hear this guy saying "you people"? That's crazy.
I mean, to be fair, we did kind of have cable because it came with our apartment internet deal, and then they got rid of it. So now we don't have it anymore. It's
this
fine.
guy, this
What
dude
a
is
nerd.
making assumptions.
He's
of,
still
like,
wired
the other
into
people.
cable. He hasn't cut
Oh
your
my-
cord yet.
Oh my
Wow,
god!
what a
How
nerd.
could? What an idiot!
I am correct that they advertise a lot for America's Got Talent, and you can't correct me on that.
Sure, okay.
They do. They're desperate to be relevant again.
It's the end of Pride Month.
Ripping pepperoni.
We decided to let our Pride representative Kaylee finally decide what we talk about for once.
We talked about all the sex last time.
We sure did.
So now it's time to talk about none of the sex.
Mhm.
We're flipping that switch. We're reversing course.
Flip it and reverse it, baby. It's time to talk about aces.
You have a dream you wish to tell, and it's just laughable, but hey kid, what the hell? 'Cause you're one of a kind.
So, give us a little premiere, Kaylee.
Oh, goodness. Where to begin?
No?
Since the dawn of man,
Okay.
people have sometimes not liked the woohoo, and that's okay.
What? Hoops.
Yes. A lot of us, actually.
I can't believe this.
We're in your fucking walls. We see you. We hear you. Stop doing that thing. It's a little embarrassing, but we won't say anything about it when we see you in person.
They told me Dr. Pepper 10 was for men. I'm a man.
I am a man. Holds up little razor.
That's a fitting reference.
If it has not been made kind of obvious or apparent, or if this is your first episode you're listening to, hello, I'm Kaylee. I am non-binary, mostly present femme, and somewhere in the asexual umbrella, usually I'd say demisexual.
Woo!
That's a lot of words that if you're not, in those sort of spaces or have any friend who is in the LGBTQ plus community, you might not know what that means.
Yeah.
So for today's relevancy, at least, talking about asexuality, which is a general sweeping, but is the persons who do not identify as people who enjoy or want or are interested in even having sexual relationships or entanglements, asexual being the opposite of allosexual, which is peoples of any gender who want to do the sex things. Yeah, ace and allo, not the plant.
Okay.
And let's be realistic here. My first thought when I hear allosexual is like an allosaurus who's just like ready to hit the town. And like, I'm sorry. That's like the first thing that pops into mind is just like a fucking dinosaur who's just like, all right, let's get on the apps, baby.
Really sure the allosexual population enjoys that comparison.
You don't want to be a dinosaur?
I do not.
You're missing out, man.
I'm sure.
But so you have the asexuality, ace umbrella, as it's sort of referred to in a lot of queer spaces, because underneath that, there are a lot of different ways, because, surprise, people are fucking complicated. People have individual preferences.
You're telling me that
two-
sexuality is a spectrum?
I need you to sit down.
What?
I'm ready for Yes.
Impossible.
Oh, God, Gibby, no.
Give me that.
The world has just been shaken up, and my understanding of reality has been torn asunder.
Yes, I'm so sorry to pull both the rug and all 12 floors of the building you were standing in underneath you.
Kaylee, I'm in a 1-story house.
Yeah, there's 12 more floors under
You're
you.
underground now, baby.
Oh my god. There's no ladder.
There is water at the bottom of the ocean under this umbrella that I'll probably refer to as the Ace umbrella, Ace umbrella, whatever you call it. There's a lot of different words that we don't have a complete time and history lesson to unpack all of which today, but there are a variety of like kind of sub-identifiers underneath asexuality. For me, being demisexual is more interested in people based on having an existing relationship with them, meaning I can look at someone and think, yeah, they're attractive, but I don't want to do anything with them, versus other people that look at someone and go, they're hot, I would love to do the sex with them.
Who the fuck is this man? Who are you?
You have, and it's also both about like sexual attraction as well as romantic attraction or lack thereof. Like it is a big umbrella with lots of words, and I would love to go into a lecture about this a whole nother time. But the long and short of it is that there are a variety of ways in which people feel either attracted or unattracted to other people based on their gender, based on their sexual interest, based on if they are interested are interested in a romantic relationship or just a platonic relationship, that there's not one form of attraction that is required to exist sort of idea, that you can be interested in being with somebody and not have an interest in sex at all, or it could just be on occasion.
And you wanted to approach this specifically in like the fictional characters representing
so
that.
kind of looking, and that's partly why I'm like, we don't need to get too into the weeds on this, because that would be a longer discussion. But the idea that for many people, and hopefully then put into characters in media that people watch and consume, that there are characters and there are people out in the world that don't approach relationships or life with sex as a like constant or semi-regular thought in the back of their mind.
Impossible. The media has told me otherwise.
Exactly, apparently, and therein lies the rub. So part of what I wanted to just kind of ask, like ground floor level, because we talked a lot about like that last episode was the male gaze kind of centric, and the idea that like usually how we're shown sex and what's attractive in media is through guys being dudes holding cameras and directing things. But from what you can recall, either that you realized later in life or that maybe you kind of were picking up something like weird or different as like young Americans watching and consuming all the media that we're supposed to be good little consumers as we grew up, where do you think you first ever encountered a character, any form of media that might have been asexual?
The only one I could think of off top of my head is what's his name from BoJack Horseman?
Todd Chavez. That's who I was thinking of.
Yeah. Todd's one of the few characters who explicitly within the canon of the show, like within the fiction, explicitly goes through that journey of discovering what asexuality is and how he falls into it, and then going into, okay, how do I operate in the social space as an asexual person? Which was cool because I was like, okay, this is, not to dismiss it, but to say this is, and this is probably something I'll repeat over and over and again. This is an aspect of a person that's hard to represent without saying it explicitly.
Oh, very much.
Yeah. And then once you get to that point, it's like, okay, why does it, without the context of romance, why does it matter?
Sure.
Which with Todd, it doesn't, right? It did for that one season of BoJack Horseman. I think it was season 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But outside of that, again, it's just like, well, this guy is just a dude. You know
right.
what I mean?
Now we just know this is a part of what makes up this character. Cool.
Yeah, I very much the same. Todd was in my mind because he is as far as I can recall, the only character in media that I've kept up with, and I've kept up with a lot of media that is explicitly asexual. Like, this is how the character is written to identify. I was thumbing through that article that you sent over on Screen Rant about, you know...
Thank you, Screen Rant, for due diligence in media journalism.
Shout outs to Rebecca Budgeon. I hope that's how you pronounce your last name.
She'll never hear. And if she does, thanks for listening, Rebecca.
Rebecca's Budgeon's article on Screen Rant, 10 asexual icons in movies. Thank you.
I looked over that list and I was just like, you know, is it a situation where the character actually is ace, or is there just a lack of this element in the canon of this story? You know?
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Both of you have like punched to my two other questions immediately. That like, how do you make a story that is about this without explicitly saying it? And are we just filling in the gaps? So I'll let you finish the thought, but I just want to be like, wow, y'all studied for my quiz. A is all around. Good job.
A for ace, baby. Yeah.
Everyone gets a little gold star.
Hell yeah.
Just to sum that up, I think, honestly, there are fewer characters in media that I'm aware of that identify as like ace than actual asexuals that I have known and like befriended in real life, which is like the opposite of how everything usually goes, because there's thousands of characters out there, you know, like tons and tons of like gay and trans and bi characters and everything, and then like you've just got the big ol' A, and it's like, it's Todd.
It's Todd.
Yeah.
It's Todd. There you go. Hooray! Todd episode.
Yay!
But just a funny little thing I was thinking about,
Again, like, especially in the media conversation, these are the questions that are constantly kind of cycling back and forth as we claw and bite our way through the different spheres of media for other forms of representation, be that physical, based entirely on appearance, be that about disability, be that about sexuality and other gender identities and such as that. Like, aces they're fighting for their piece of the pie.
Yeah.
We're struggling out here, you know. Aces are sexy, aces are beautiful, but goddamn, it's hard to catch a break for a bitch, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody wants the sexy gays. Everybody wants the sexy lesbians or the sexy trans ladies and trans dudes.
Right.
It's hard to be out here going, I just like you as a friend, or I really love you, but I don't want to do that. Can we just cuddle instead? And people are that apparently doesn't sells in media. Who knows?
Yeah, like my question for you with that is, do you think it's more on writers with that point where they're like, well, if there's, let's say, a man and a woman, there has to be some element of romantic tension because there has to be, or do you think it's something that's driven by audience expectation, that like audience members are like, this person doesn't want this at all, but everybody else what? That's whack.
So this, I think, from my perspective, I would also say that like the ace as a deceiver kind of character is a trope that does exist.
Can you give examples?
Well, so like you mentioned, the like man and woman are like either co-leading or they have a sort of back and forth, a rapport in their relationship. They should get together. And we're just starting to work backwards from the like, they can just be friends or they don't have to date. Like they can just be people that exist together without a romantic involvement. But usually if you're going to introduce an ace character, if it's not a like Todd, if it's not a we're using a character to explore this identity and they are the main POV and we are following their journey, it is usually one of our characters is introduced to somebody new who they find attractive but is not reciprocating their advances. Oh, it's not because they don't like you. It's because they just don't like the idea of sex, or they're not interested in a romantic relationship. I was Big Mouth is one of the ones that like most recently comes to mind, because I think that was in a season that came out a couple years ago. Like they introduced a new character for Missy, who's really into him, and it comes out that he's asexual.
Oh yeah, now
I'm cheating. I've got a Wikipedia list of characters that either confirmed or kind of speculated.
It's not cheating, it's research.
Some of the more notable ones, like Steven Universe, again, is a show, like very, very queer centric show, but like has been stated by creators that these characters, like Peridot is asexual, and there's like some question of others.
Where does that deception that you mentioned come into play?
I think in that vein of, if we're following the POV of usually a heterosexual, allosexual character, like somebody who's interested in someone of the opposite gender and thinks they're attractive, but they're not hitting on them, sometimes it comes out in that kind of liar revealed, or like emotional like letdown of like,
why don't
but
you
don't like me? Why don't you like me? Exactly. And it's that as the trope. Exactly. Or the you're playing hard to get kind of idea, which sort of haunts other spaces of queerness, of like looking at gay, bi, lesbian, like other forms of sexual attraction, where it's not like, oh, you just haven't found the right girl yet, to the guy who has a crush on his best friend, like, or vice versa. Like, it's that idea just manifested slightly differently. But usually just becomes that like, oh, we use this for an episode, or we use this for a story beat, and then realize, oh, that's why. And kind of to your point about Todd, then it's just and now it doesn't necessarily matter because we've like used it for those purposes, but now what do we do with that information? Versus, based on interviews from the early 2000s, Steven Hillenburg confirmed that SpongeBob is an ace character, arguably because sponges reproduce asexually.
Yeah.
But in that vein, here's now like an element of a character that like is not about the journey of that discovery, but if you were a different style of show, if you were a different style of cartoon, could be funny to kind of double down on more of putting a character that might not be thinking of the world in the most like heteronormative allosexual way. Like, how do they operate?
Yeah. Clearly
in their own little world for many reasons, because it's SpongeBob SquarePants. But having that as a facet of a character changes situations in both, I would say, comedy and drama.
Yeah, I guess it's hard, man, because I'm just sitting thinking, it's like, and obviously I'm a huge proponent of representation and media, right? I'd be hypocritical if I weren't. The hard thing with specifically sexuality representation in media, if it's not part of that character's plot or journey, it doesn't make that character any different from anyone else, right? So if we're not giving that romantic tension like Gibby described, right? If we're not presenting that romantic tension or that conflict with another character, why would it ever come up? You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Or you get what I'm asking?
Especially in like an environment like SpongeBob, where for the most part, romantic as well as like sexual attraction basically doesn't exist within that world,
right,
outside
exactly.
of like Mr. Krabs briefly crushing on Mrs. Puff. Like,
we're not talking about this or this or this. Yes.
Like there's really no presentation of attraction of any form for most characters when you come to think of it.
And I think that's what leads to, because even in the article we were citing earlier, it leads to the fan base speculating, right?
Because currently it's exactly a writer, a creator, like rather than letting the media be able to either show or imply in a deliberate manner, we have to ask writers to do the shitty tell, don't show part of things.
Yeah,
and
because
spell it out.
there's no real way to show. You know what I mean?
There are ways, but it is a like, it's not always easy to do that, especially if you as the creator or you are not close with people who live their life in such a way that it's not like aceness gets stereotyped as robotic, as cold, usually coupled with like autistic in the bad way.
That's where I was taking it. Or ace characters are like the funny little gremlin in the group, which I'm like they could
not
just
interested
be people.
in any relationship.
Yeah.
They're just here to be a little guy, which yes, I am, but not always. Like, yes, but stereotypes can be hurtful, okay?
Because again, if we use SpongeBob of SpongeBob SquarePants, Todd of BoJack Horseman, and Peridot of Steven Universe, the gremlin is literally their title, right?
Yes.
That's all they're there to be. They get their emotional moments, but at the same time.
But then you have on the opposite end of the spectrum, either pseudo confirmed by creators and original writers, or like inferred through fandom in other ways. Yeah. You have like your ice queens, like Elsa, literally speculated. Like you have Elsa, you have Sherlock Holmes, in a number of portrayals, like Conan Doyle. So again, supposedly wrote him to be what at the time they would call asexual. How that got used in the BBC series is a topic for another day. Queer baiting, but you have that sort of end of it, or where these are characters that are cold, distant, don't want any real relationship with a person, let alone a sexual one. Like you range from that to gremlin, and I'm like, no, that's a pretty good spectrum of like how media tries to figure out what to do with this in the greater context of attractions, both sexual and romantic.
And literally in the middle is just Todd, who is like part gremlin, but also part robot in that like he's always got the right calculation to both succeed and cause the most amount of mischief possible.
Right.
But like that's what he's there to do, baby.
He's there to sit on the couch and eat Bojack's Pop-Tarts.
And again, I'm all about representation, but it's very interesting in fan spaces because for me, it feels, well, how do I want to phrase this? It feels not correct to assume someone's sexuality. Like going through that list, it's like, oh, Elsa, which I'm like, okay. It also, like, Bilbo Baggins and Gandalf were also on there, right? And
I'm Gandalf's a god, so he's got bigger fish to fry.
If you walked up to Tolkien and were like, hey, Bilbo and Gandalf are ace, he'd be like, I don't know what that means. Go to a church, you heathen. You know what I mean?
J.R.R. Tolkien's just like, how in the hells have you traveled backwards in time? Reveal your secrets, wizard.
Right. Okay, but Mans would invite you to a party though. You butter him up right, he would take you partying and you would regret your choices.
Oh, we'd be Tolkien all night, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, that would be. I don't know how I felt about black. I do know how I felt about black people. It wouldn't be fun for me, but I would be happy for you guys.
Oh no! Wait, no, I changed my answer. No, fuck. But no, like looking at that list, like exactly, you have some of these like more like fantasy characters that I think part of that is that like, well, we've already like established, and you kind of get that sense too when like a writer has like a cast of characters and you sort of start, if you have like men and women like interspersed, or you kind of already have keyed in that like maybe some of these people are a little queer in certain ways, that they start to pair off, that the ones that are left alone are immediately kind of a red flag like of the group, or when they fight against it, because also on this list is Isabella and Bruno from Encanto. Like both of them have been like speculated as somewhere on the ace spectrum. Isabella just for being like, I just don't want to get married to a dude right now. I want to go like be my own person, live my own life, and make my silly little cacti. And Bruno, I guess just because
I haven't seen that movie. Do they make him live in the walls or some shit?
He chooses to live in the wall. I told you, we're in the fucking walls. We see what you're doing with that. Put that down.
Damn.
Stop it. Stop that right now.
I do really want to talk about one specifically that was in that list.
Yes.
It feels like a pretty bold claim to say Jessica Rabbit is ace.
It is not bold at all.
Yes,
Are
it
you
is.
kidding me?
No. Well, I'm saying it feels
This
like
is
it.
a tender nerve for me, Gibby.
I'm saying it feels like it. I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong. I'm saying the boldness comes from the fact that this character for decades has been sexualized. That does not necessarily mean that the character is sexual.
Right.
But
Sure.
what I'm saying is it is a funny little irony that it is possible that the most hypersexualized cartoon character in the existence of the medium has potentially been inferred to be asexual.
I'll jump on that landmine. Hold on. What's the Boondocks quote? The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, right? I'm not saying.
Thank you.
I'm not saying Roger Rabbit and Jessica Rabbit do or don't have sex because it's irrelevant to everything, and frankly, I don't want to think about it.
You're not a furry.
Yeah, I'm sure. but again, I'm always going to be on the chain. It feels wrong to me, and this is harmless because these characters aren't like real people. But
and also, this is your movie,
and also that's not why I feel this way. Let me also put that out there. I don't care because I don't think
ever. So now he can say what he wants.
No. I don't care because I don't think it changes anything about the characters,
Sure.
which is important because that also leads me to say if you want to say that she's ace, then like cool. I disagree,
Right.
but that's fine.
No, like it's
but-
that like this doesn't change anything about her, but
Yeah.
maybe that's just part of it anyways.
Yeah.
Like this. That's not changing who she is suddenly.
Yeah.
But like, hey, if this is in here, then that's just been part of her and she's still a badass.
Yeah,
But-
so I definitely understand. I understand the need or the want to grab onto that because I guess in my mind, the only parallels I could think of, Knuckles of Sonic the Hedgehog fame and Piccolo of Dragon Ball Z fame.
Yes.
Their entire fandom is like, hey, those dudes are black, man. Like those are brothers. You know what I'm saying?
You can't convince me Knuckles isn't a black man. Are
He's
you kidding me?
voiced by Idris Elba in all the
By this
adventure
point.
games. He's represented with gospel and hip hop. Knuckles is black, homie. But
Point. Denial is a river in Egypt.
right, but I guess I have to pull myself back and say the Ace community is doing the same thing that I do when I say, hey, the other represents me.
Oh, sure.
Right.
No, there's certainly, and that's unfortunately just fandom. Fandom loves to claim. Fandom loves to get on bandwagons that don't need to exist for harmless shenanigan shippery and sometimes for worser things. But I think it's certainly that issue of just like media has had a difficult time, one, getting the idea across because it is simultaneously such a big deal and not a big deal.
Yeah.
Because in some ways, it's just how people operate and live their lives. Like, it is, like, it's that big a deal at a personal level, but it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of, like, but that doesn't, if this is a part of who you are as a person and your identity, then, like, that arguably doesn't make your whole personhoodness about that thing.
It's the
that is just a facet.
It's the
of
paradox
you.
of representation, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I demand to see myself represented here, but then the other side says, but it's not a big deal. You're
Right.
you're not what we considered standard, right? It's like, it's not, but I demand to be depicted.
I demand
right?
to be seen. Okay, here you go. It's pretty obvious. That feels stereotypical.
Yeah.
I hate that.
It's
okay,
tough,
we've
man.
toned it down. I can't even tell that that's this. You might as well have just called them this instead and called it a day.
We thought that was the point. It is the point, but you're not doing a good job. What do you mean? Yeah.
And then
Yes,
you have
it's tough.
Disney that comes in just like, look, we added a lesbian. And
They're
it's
kissing
like,
in the background.
they're
in the
kissing in the
corner.
background, and it can easily be scrubbed out for the Russian and Chinese releases of the film.
This is ruining American families.
Woke. The big woke is on the prowl.
Big woke in conjunction with big sip.
No! big woke and big sip. Put them together. We can't let them merge. We'll get big soak.
Well done.
But you did mention fandoms, and Kaylie, and your ever insistence on getting me to talk about Has Been. Yeah.
Yes.
And your ever insistence to get me to talk about Has Been Hotel. Here we are.
Today is gonna be a fucking happy day in hell.
I fucking hate you. I hate you so much.
Why do they all want Alastor to fuck?
Oh, I've gone deep undercover. I've tried to figure this out. And I don't mean by like, oh, I've done this on purpose. I mean, I have been following this show since the pilot came out in 2019.
Yep.
Some of these
Since
characters
there
have
were
existed long
blueprints,
before.
I remember you talking about it earlier than that.
That's the thing. The
Yeah.
characters have existed on DeviantArt and other spaces since like 2015, 2017.
Yeah.
2015
Basically, like,
DeviantArt. That's how you know she's been with the community forever.
I was up. I was like, oh, hey, I used to go in that website. I didn't see any of this corner though, but good for y'all. But Vivian Medrano, the creator, was like posting like concepts of these characters like as far back as middle school. Like Alastor was an edgy middle school OC
Yeah.
that by some demonic curse upon our world has made it to full-fledged character in a show.
Yeah.
But over that time, like as a creator, you have all that time with your characters. You get to decide things about them and you go, yeah, these are their traits. These are this and this. You discover things about them along the way as they take a different shape, as you start working out more of what they are like as a hard concept rather than just this loose idea. Like these characters have gone through some evolutions. Alastor has been pretty like confirmed through the whole time of his like character, like who is he, what is he. Viv has pretty much always said like, yeah, he's ace, like never specifically, like there are people that are like, he is arrow ace, he does not want a romantic or a sexual relationship, and others that are just like, I think it might just be like asexual, like just not interested in sex, but like sure, whatever. Like, so there's that infighting going on. But somewhere under the ace spectrum, we have a hard confirmed ace character, and even in the show, there is a quip made about that. Not like in any sort of like, oh, you're such and such. It is a one-line joke by like one of his best friend characters that's introduced going, come on, Alastor, I know she's not your type. I know you're an ace in the hole. A what now? And that's it. And we move on.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's it is the audience catches it, character does not, goes right over his head what the fuck she's talking about, and we move on. So it's like canon in the show, canon in the like meta, however long you've been keeping up with her shit, world of the fandom.
And yet,
Yet people thought when the pilot launched and there were a lot more eyes on this show, people were like, oh, Alastor's a Tumblr sexy man candidate. For
took
sure.
the words right out of my mouth, actually.
Like people latched onto that immediately.
Yeah.
When the show released on Amazon, the bigger floodgates behind the small dam
Yeah.
burst open even more.
The levee shattered, absolutely
Truly.
atomized.
Fucking atomized. Fucking dissolved, bro. But so yes, so it's that question of like, why? Like, yes, fandoms will ship. That's a given. Again, you can't control what the fuck people will or won't do with characters. And she's pretty open about that too. She's like, yeah, as long as y'all aren't being like mean to each other, ship who you want. I don't care. I came up in the same cringy fan spaces as you. I know how this works. Like, it's not about a creator getting defensive over a character. This instance, it is about, like, actual people that identify as various forms of asexual or aromantic, seeing the rest of the fandom draw the most lewd shit of this character with other characters. Like, I swear to God, like, for some reason, despite, like, overtly sexual characters that are, like porn stars and, like, either, like, romantically involved already with other characters, like, no. For some reason, the ace sexy man character, this is the one that every other character in the show gets shipped with graphically.
Can I be honest as to why I think that is what it is?
Please. No, I'd love to entertain thoughts from the lecture hall.
Because everybody wants to fuck the villain.
That's definitely part of it.
Like, that's just part of it. Like, it happens in every single fandom ever.
Sure.
Where it's just like, haha, I am chaos incarnate. I am evil upon this world. And the entire fandom goes, tell me more about that. It happens everywhere. Like, and like, a creator cannot make a character evil enough to the point where, like, there isn't at least one person that wants to see Rule 34
Which
of that
I will
character.
say, this man is conniving,
Hot.
sinister,
Hot.
a cannibal.
To some hot.
What?
And
No, they're out there on the internet.
there's a reason the Hannibal fan base has persisted as long as it has.
But okay.
Army Hammer just came out publicly about it, and that's why he had to die.
Okay.
It was becoming too powerful.
Yeah.
But this is sort of what struck me to, like, bring this as an episode topic, is this just, it's not an instance of the fans taking a character away from a creator and, like, running with it in their own direction, that a creator's like, no, you can't do that. But it is a fandom infighting with itself of, you have actual ace and arrow people, like, where the camp where I sit, where I go, I don't give a shit, because, like, I typically don't have much of an interest of sex, but it's not like I'm not aware that such a thing can be performed, even if I'm not like, yeah, let's go. Like, what it is that group that's like, could go either way, could be me, couldn't be, I don't care. I don't care if a character that is like in the same, like, identity pool as myself does or doesn't. I don't know. Let people do what they want to. It's a fandom. They're fictional characters. Versus then you have the, like, strongly opinionated arrow aces going, how dare you? You can't do this. And then you have the people that aren't calling attention to, not all ace and arrow people want to have sex or do these things, and you're taking this character away from these people, like, versus that, like, you're coming in here and saying things and you don't understand half of what you're talking about, like, hello.
Yeah.
Also, we're also in the room and can say things if we really wanted to and don't feel the particular need to.
It's kind of like one of those conversations that needs to happen, right? Unfortunately, just like the kind of fans that a piece of media like Has Been Hotel
a lot of people have been saying, oh, here's where the remnants of the Homestuck, Hitalia, and
the musical theater kids,
and the musical theater kids, and this, like, some,
it's a weird blend. But I wonder if this is just like one of those conversations that needs to happen as this thing, because it's the normalization period, right? It's as people become exposed to this thing. We then have to contextualize said exposure, and maybe at some point it'll level out. I don't think Has Been Hotel is where it's. I haven't seen it, and I refuse to. But I don't think that's where it's going
but
to.
Like swearing and sex jokes.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Other good drama, like other good stuff in there, but on the surface, it's that, like, it's adult language and sex jokes. with some good musical theater show tunes.
Yeah. So yeah,
That's
you
what it
couple
is.
you couple the themes and you couple the topics along with this. I would also, in Gibby's vein, how he's like everybody wants to fuck a villain. Is like I would also put in, if this character's with nobody, then we can put them with anyone.
Yes,
Right.
and that was where I'd originally kind of seen that happening, was that like when we were first introduced to the pilot characters, again, depending on if you were like immediately like latched in, obsessed, you were like digging through all of like Viv's live streams and sketches and learning everything you could about the world. I did not. I was like, I'm happy with what's here on screen.
Yeah.
They're cool. That's like 10 people to keep track of. That's easy.
Can confirm.
But that was sort of the vibe that I got, was just like, yeah, I think I like Alastor, but he was not my favorite at the time. He was kind of a like sinister, villainous free agent. You could see how either he could become like a reluctant ally, or Gremlin title for that show goes to Nifty.
Sure, that's a word.
All we know for her is that she's an ally.
Okay.
Good for her.
But like a character that was introduced with this like, ooh, you could just be straight up evil and playing all these people here, or you could actually like be like difficult and mean and rude on the outside, but like a softie on the inside. Oh, we don't know how this is gonna go.
The chaotic neutral.
Right, truly. But like having other characters, it's like you could see those like where those relationships could potentially go, because we had characters already playing off of each other. People went, oh, okay, like that's where I was. I was like, I like Charlie. I like her relationship with her girlfriend Vaggie, and I like Angel Dust. I just don't know who like I could see this kind of character with. But like that used to be one of the fan favorites, and suddenly this series came out and it just all defaults to Alastor. And then sort of turning so causes a little more of those problems along the way, of like not just those issues of the single character, like the lone character amongst the group, as well as the villain, and already just being designed like a Tumblr sexy man. He's the red version of the Onceler.
Yep.
Like, you know,
The what?
the Onceler.
Dr. Seuss is spinning inside of his grave so quickly that you could power an entire city if you hooked up a generator to his coffin.
I don't give a good goddamn about Dr. Seuss.
I'm just saying, it's pretty funny.
Bo's gonna catch up on some very important Tumblr history in just a second here.
Oh yeah, I did a little Google search and it's immediately regrettable.
How did we get here?
People tried to fuck the villain. That's how we got here.
Yeah, I guess so.
They
But
saw
yeah,
evil and were just like, yep.
you attract what you fear.
You know,
Tell me
really,
more.
it really is a question of like the balance of a fandom, of like it doesn't affect the canon usually if the, you know, fandom has a relatively unified opinion, even if that opinion is wrong. But is there a situation where the fandom can detract by superimposing an identity onto said character, like Alastor and all that? Like,
I would certainly say so, because from what I've seen, like this, again, separate episode conversation, but fandom studies and looking at how fans engage with media, people take characters and sort of run with them and play like house with paper dolls.
Oh yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, because you're finding pieces of yourself in some form of media that resonate and speak to you, and you are possibly like exploring your own identity, your own thoughts of matters in the world and relationships with others. And that will in it like without question warp a character. You start developing particular sentiments to them in your own mind's eye because of how you do or don't see them.
Mm-hmm.
So that already starts changing things, but then it doubles down when the rest of the fandom is reading and sharing those things with each other.
Yeah.
And so you get fan fiction, you get storytelling that characterizes it's a bad game of telephone. You have a character that starts as like cruel and harsh on the outside, but we know is at least operates on some amount of like morals and logic that we know is asexual. Like that's what we know about this character from the canon of the show. Gets warped down the line through iteration and iteration to if this character is in a story involving like them being shipped and having sex with another character, they are blushing like a virgin and have no idea how to do anything and are just so conflicted and distraught at the fact that their body is betraying them, that they feel things like that then becomes the like keystone of that fandom's thought of a character. Like sometimes it's harmless, like, oh, this little guy, he's a cinnamon roll, and that's just kind of how the fandom looks at such a character. I think like kind of the Steve Rogers problem of like, oh, just a little cinnamon roll. This man has killed people.
Yeah.
This man, like he is sweet and endearing, but he is also like a grown ass adult.
Yeah.
And a big one at that.
Once you corrupt the image to a certain degree, it starts to become unacceptable.
So then it kind of counterproducts itself of just being like, and we're back in the territory of like, y'all are missing the point, and or we're being written about by people that don't live through that experience or don't have that perspective of the world, and then make it more difficult to get away from. Like you already have, like, of course, any writer trying to include a colorful cast of characters that come from a variety of backgrounds. It's like, it is difficult to be both inclusive, but also kind of being true to like, what do you know from your worldview?
Because you're not going to have the experience of every single person.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's difficult to escape that, while then also watching other people like, and again, it's fan fiction, so on some level it's harmless, but at the same time, fandom is kind of important because that's how people are primarily engaging with the piece of media more often than not. You'll watch a show however many times, but you're going to be constantly coming back to forums and Reddit threads and other sources of how you engage
and you
with
also
that
have
content so much more.
With fandoms today, you have so much more direct connectivity to the original creator and the people that are involved.
Twitter was a mistake for many reasons, but this is the biggest fucking one.
Yeah, you have so much more influence, and some creators are able just to like stay the course with their original vision, which you might hear people, griping about, but that weight of pressure, expectation from the people that you are creating this for can be heavy.
Yeah.
And if people don't get the resolution that they're desiring, or if their expectations are subverted, that can create a lot of negative feelings, especially if they've projected their own self-identity onto said characters, where it's just like, what do you mean Alastor hasn't been incredibly queer the entire time? How dare! I wrote an entire fan fiction library about all of the sexual escapades. How dare you? I'm going to give this a 1 on IMDb.
Because I think for a while in kind of, at least like contemporary fandom spaces at least, honestly, like, Elsa was kind of the main flagship for like ace representation, and that was just non-canonized, non-confirmed, but like people were just like looking for like, what is a popular character that we find ourselves in, that it's kind of
queer spaces in general, right?
Yeah. And there's I think again, like the sort of academic and like gender studies and so like critical lens question of there's a queerness to Elsa, whether it is or isn't any form of like interest in the same gender or same sex or non-interest, as opposed to her sister's fairy tale head over heels for the pretty tall blonde man. That was sort of the like flagship, for, at least from my perspective, for a while, character, with a couple others being tossed in here and there. Jughead Jones, I do want to mention, because I think that's kind of the one of the positive ones, at least, that I've seen. Jughead from the Archie comics, that what like is a character that has persisted, for better or worse, thanks Riverdale, From just kind of a like Archie foil, and also just like he's just a dude, but like a little different than Archie, to like being read as asexual, like people reading the comics and continuing to follow that character, like taking that and going, hey, don't want to like
why are there
call a spade, but also
why are there two women pursuing this one guy and the second guy is just out here being a dude eating burgers?
Right. To the point that, according to Wikipedia, but in 2016, he was confirmed asexual in the new Riverdale Jughead comics. Like, it followed along for decades to the point they went, all right.
Fuck it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, sure. Yeah. People like this. Fuck it, let's do it.
That whole show as it goes on is like...
again, we're not talking about the show. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the comics.
Yeah, I can say as somebody who read Archie comics from like 5 to 17
fucking
or so.
Of course you did.
Yeah, you know who I am. You know my heart of hearts, Bodio.
I do.
You've looked into this, and you can just see the corn and cheese that exists within my soul. And I am not ashamed of it.
You shouldn't be.
Come to think of it.
Fly your freak flag.
Yep,
Fly your freak flag, little dude.
For Archie comics.
I'm drawing a line in the sand. Nobody can stop me. Yeah, I didn't even think of it because there's just been across every Jughead-centric story, and even like where he's a secondary character, it's just an element that has never existed for him. And anytime that like anybody shows any interest in him, he's just badgered by societal convention to be like, yeah, I'll go to a dance, but we're stopping for burgers on the way.
Right. And like
Icon.
people will like put him and like Veronica together. It's like, oh, they're clearly non-conforming in some way, but it's that like you're putting them together on aesthetic, not as characters.
Yeah.
Every true fan knows that it's Reggie and Veronica.
You're trying to 2 and 2 and set your pair. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every true fan knows it's Reggie and Veronica and Archie and Betty and Moose and Midge and Jughead and a burger, and that's it.
Sure.
That's it. But they're like, I think as we just kind of, because again, I think we're sitting in a question of like contemporarily, it's a shit show. You're fucked no matter what you do, whether you choose to like explicitly call attention to it, either in canon, on Twitter, in some other form.
Yeah.
Like, you're fucked if you do that, because then people will like fight to the death about that's the only way to do this. Or if you don't say anything, then it's erasure, or it's just stereotypic, or it's just to do this one plot line over and over again, and we're not getting any more original with it. That I'm actually kind of curious and kind of thinking back to older pieces of media where, yes, we kind of know that it's not going to be this character asexual, like clear as day, but things that like perhaps could be read into what happens if so-and-so becomes an ace icon. Because one of my favorites, and I think it fits more into the like little gremlin side of the ace spectrum, is that there is a reading of Gilligan from Gilligan's Island as asexual.
Okay.
Gilligan's not a person. He's an object of chaos put upon this earth to piss everybody off.
And that's why I idolize him.
Yeah.
So basically what you're just telling me is that like all gods of chaos are canonically asexual. From the Tempest to Gilligan's Island, all the way to Has-Been Hotel. That's all the media that there is that matters.
Like, thinking of other things where it's that, like, again, I think similar to the Jughead situation, Velma from Scooby-Doo is always one of those, like, either questionably, like, she's either, like potentially bi or lesbian, or just ace, like, because we do see that she's into other characters, but it's certainly not the same way that like Daphne approaches
Kaylie.
Like,
if we try to break down the sexuality of the Mystery Machine gang, we're never going to end
we all
this
know
episode.
It's a polycule anyway.
Obviously, they're hippies in the 60s.
Oh, okay. Nope. All right. So that has been this episode of the Liberal Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, man. Follow us on our social, singular. Follow us on Instagram.
special singular because Twitter is dead.
Like, comment, subscribe in the YouTube space. Give us 5 stars and all the podcast stuff. Really do appreciate it. Join us next time when we build the mystery machine. I don't know.
I'll get my tools.
Peace.
The Liberal Artists Podcast premieres every other Thursday on your favorite podcasting platform. The show is hosted by Bodio Kaylie Horowitz, and Andy Gibson. You can find the show at Liberal Artists Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks to White Hot for performing the theme song Reflect, which can be found on freebeats.io. Now, I'm off to go exploring, and maybe, just maybe, I'll find a sheep that I can call my own. Good day.
I just want to put this thought into mind of Jeff Bezos going to the most recent shareholder meeting with like a clicky remote.
Sure, going through the slide deck.
He just goes to the slide deck and he's just like, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you how we're going to take over the world. And it's just the Tumblr sexy man of the month. Alastor just pops up and he's just like, and also musical theater. And they all just start clapping.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need.